So are we all back? Shall we start? Okay. So we will start the session on role of science attaché and science diplomacy, historical aspects and future prospects. So there is a paper which has been given points for discussion. It's just to give you some points. I mean, literally it's not to be taken, I think, in a formal document. It's just to many of you may have points, things to say about one or more of these points. It's just an aid to discussion. Dr. M. Anandakrishnan, who is one of the panelists, has not been able to join us. He sent a message today. So I will request Dr. Jain, Ashok Jain, to substitute for him in the panel, if that is okay with you. And we will start with Dr. Jaiprakash Gupta has been delayed. He has given some points, but I'll keep them here. In case he joins us, he can make those points. Otherwise, I'll have to read them out. That leaves Dr. He has come? Where?
No. Maybe he's on the tea table.
I can see. Anyway, that means we will start with Dr. Abhishek Vaish, whom I had the interaction with when he was in Russia. So, Dr. Vaish, you will please talk about this, make your points. We will go through all the panelists, make the talks, and then I will go around the table, ask all the others to make interventions.
Okay.
So, you will all have to come up with something to tell us, ideas. So, Dr. Vaish.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, I'll start with my short understanding about science diplomacy, and then I'll take up my experiences in the verticals which are mentioned in the point of discussions. In the modern era of knowledge-based society, sustainable development goals highlights number of global problems that requires active participation of international scientific community in proactive, collaborated manner with the objective to foster the national interest of the country. Predominantly, science diplomacy is one dimension to it. Every country is advancing to create an ecosystem where national interest must be embedded within a commitment to the global interest. In another way, translating our own scientific priorities into the foreign policy of the country. Sustainable development goals are possible if we may bring the stakeholders like scientific knowledge, decision makers, the international community, and domestic policy in one platform. The governance of ungoverned space, for example, the Antarctic, the deep ocean, deep space, and aspects to the cyber world requires science to be the base of framing governance relationship. To summarize, science diplomacy opens up a new horizon and a window of opportunity for every individual to contribute and also to bring our national interest, and predominantly, as rightly said by Dr. Elia, it's a fluidic stage where the world is becoming more fluidic. It gives us the room to connect, and we should do the best in order to optimize and scale up this particular opportunity. As coming to the point round of discussion on the verticals which had been mentioned, I would like to share my own experiences, starting from the very first thing, field operation. Now, gentlemen, it is a great journey, as we all know, and we are handling the position of science counselor. It's very challenging and rewarding as well. Now, what happens is when you are joining this particular position, it is like a deployability of resources. What does it mean? It means that from the very first day you have to start working and contributing. I remember in 2015 it was the month of December, where Russia, we all know Russia is a country which is well known for harsh climatic condition. And when I have joined this mission for this particular job, right after 1 week was the annual summit where the PM was supposed to be there. And yes, our team, our colleagues, Dr. Vashne, Dr. Relia, everyone, whatever best they could have given us the input, we went with that preparation in our mind. Nevertheless, the format is so contained that you have to start understanding your position and you have to start contributing. So coming back to that particular mode, when the annual summit happened, the very first day on joining, I got the first agreement to vet for, and that was the tripartite agreement between India and Russia, and that was related to supercomputing education. Now, that was something that was very, very interesting experience for me, because the ambassador had given me the responsibility that you have to go through this particular agreement and you have to brief and you have to ensure that this should be signed during the summit. It requires a lot of follow up. First of all, you should have the understanding on what is actually the substance of that particular agreement and how this is going to benefit. Now, that was a tripartite agreement, which means three ministries, three agencies were involved: CDAC, then Department of Science and Technology, and Ministry of Human Resources Development. So bringing their views was a great challenge. We had paucity of time, and with that time limitation, we had to bring all the stakeholders' view, and then there is a formal process of how you have to take the vetting from different positions and clearance of different bodies, and then finally you have to come across. So that was my starting point. It was a great experience for me. Soon after summit, things started in their normal goal, and I still remember when I called Dr. Vashne and he said, now take a 10 days break, because now 10 days Russia is not going to operate, and that was the Christmas time. So that was the time where I started settling myself and started working on understanding my job and responsibilities, my position, the expectations within the mission, the expectation outside the mission. That was the time we started working on these issues. Well, so coming to my internal, as the point vertical has, what are the responsibilities that you should have within the ambition, within the mission, and with different wings. Now, interestingly, Moscow is a very big mission, and there are 7 to 8 wings, and these wings are in itself a big expansion. They are working independently in different sphere. Now, science and technology and innovation being a cutting edge thing is cutting across the horizontals of different things. For example, education wing. So there are many overlapping issues where you have to be very, very clear about. And sometimes these overlapping issues are problem also, because you do not understand the subject matter in those particular area, and you will be given the responsibility to handle. Sometimes they also cause delay. Sometimes it also cause other problems as far as reporting and other issues are concerned. Nevertheless, it's a great way to understand your position, that your field has so many overlapping stakeholders view, and you have to appreciate that. So I'll share few of my examples. Like the issue came to me from, we had one wing from HAL, and HAL wanted, this is a very good learning. I'm just giving you the factual information, because I thought that this forum is the right forum to express through factual information within the room, and to open up the inside. So HAL team was interested to get something for their jet planes about the wind shield protection system, which was available with one of the institutions of Russian Academy of Science. Now, usually what happens is that these HAL bodies and other bodies, they are controlled by a so-called commercial organization, which is Rosoboronexport, and they have a very, very clear eye into what these guys are doing. So this means if HAL had to go through Rosoboronexport, this means that the price of that same thing will be very high, escalated. Now, HEL approached to us that, sir, please help us in this particular dimension. You have your own active link with the Academy of Science, and therefore you may help us in that. And through our link, what we had done is we started giving them inputs, and eventually this was a very good way, a strategic way to help them connect with the research they had in this particular direction. This is one example. The other example I have already cited about supercomputing education, where I had to follow up a lot of time with CDAC, the then director Professor Rajat Moona. We had a very active discussion on these aspects. If you look at the structure of supercomputing education mission, the entire funds are with the Department of Science and Technology, and CDAC and Ministry of Human Resources are just going to be the beneficiary of these particular fund, and they had to implement the particular scheme. Unfortunately, in the tripartite agreement, Department of Science and Technology was not there. Now, this was something like the main guys, where the main body, the department which is having the fund, they are not the main stakeholders indirectly, and the others who are the main stakeholders of this agreement are vouching for it. So this is again a kind of a learning experience of how to materialize, and we had done a lot of follow up in this aspect, but eventually I don't know what is the progress so far in that. We at that time things were not moving the way it should. Right. External. So coming, these are some of the points that I want to add from the internal relationship with other wings that you should have. External. Now, there are many things in this particular vertical which I would like to add. How should a science counselor understand their position? Now, starting for the very first thing, cultural sensitivity. Now, being a science counselor, when you are deployed for that particular position, you have to be so sensitive for the cultural sensitivity part, because that is the impulse, that is the nerve that you will give you a great mileage. Every country, they have their own way of their own societal structure, and no matter whether you are handling science or technology, but ultimately diplomacy is all about human connect, where science and technology is just one vehicle for you to penetrate. And therefore, cultural sensitivity plays a very important role. For example, in my country, Christmas, it is not 25th December is not a Christmas time for Russia. They celebrate their Christmas in the first week of January. So you have to make sure that you are ready with the gifts. You have to make sure that your guest lists are ready, and you have to make sure that you should reach out to every individual well in time, because at that time, 10, 20, 15 days, no human resource will be available. Your own staff, where you have to be based out of some foreign staff of that particular country, they will also mind. So you have to be well prepared, well in advance. Your guest list should be finalized, the gifts should be ready, and it should reach to them well in time. Otherwise, there is no point. Similarly, Women's Day in Russia is something which is very critical. There are few days like National Day, Victory Day, Women's Day. These are the days where you have to be very careful and cautious, and you have to proactively reach to make your presence felt. And this actually supplement the cultural sensitivity part in this particular position. Yeah, during my tenure, I feel that myself lucky to be at the tenure where Russia was going through a major structural transformation. What does it mean? It means that Russia realized the power and realized that how the West and the entire world is operating, and started restructuring their mechanism the way they were operating earlier. This is a critical time for Russia. At the same time, it is a critical time for us also, because everything, all our arrangements were into the legacy system, and going for a transition phase means that you have to actually understand your stake, and then how these transition will affect your stakes is something that you have to be very careful. And during my tenure, the structural changes were so high that not only one, it was iterative, and multiple times it happened that every reporting agencies were changed. The bosses were out, new point of contacts were created, and you have to just understand the velocity of this change, and accordingly you have to develop the liaison with the point of contacts you will be working on. So structural change, I doubt that the other science counselor would have faced the same situation, but this was very peculiar with my region, and we had a very I would say it was a great challenge for us to be very proactive in this structural change. Yeah. The third thing I feel it's very logical and rational is to create a list of event for annual event. Now, what happens is these days people are talking about uh, connectivity through their mega programs. Now, Russia is one country that had started revamping their what to say connectivity to the outer world, and every month there used to be big programs. It could be in different region, it could be related to science and technology, economic forum, etc., etc. So getting into the position, you have to understand important events which could be relevant to your country, prepare it well in advance, and circulate this information to the concerned ministries for the possibilities to invite them well in advance, because we have our own process delay. So in